sugar, spice, and everything nice. These were the ingredients chosen to create the perfect little girl. But Professor Utonium accidentally added an extra ingredient to the concoction, Chemical X.
Hello everyone, Yubel here, aka 38 the Master 1, and as you saw from the intro, I've gone and done the impossible. I've made a competitive Fire King Yubel deck using support from the new structure deck and 4 other engines. And for the past month, I've been winning games at locals with it. This deck really is no joke. It actually works and can beat meta decks just like any other Fire King build. So today, I'm bringing you, the Yubel community, a complete strategy guide and combo video for the very deck I've been using so that you too can set your local scene ablaze with Fire King Yubel. By the way, if you haven't yet seen my deck profile over on the ZephyrWargames channel, do go check it out as that's part 1 to this video. It does explain all the cards and the ratios that I'll be using in this guide. There is a link down in the description below if you do need to watch that first. As for those coming from that video, welcome to part 2 and welcome to my channel, where we cover everything Yubel related so that you too can become a master just like me. So if you're new here, consider subscribing if you want to be part of the Yubel community. Right, so since this is a complete and comprehensive guide, I've split this video into 3 sections so that it's easier to digest, as well as added timestamps to help all of you follow along, or maybe replay parts if you need to. So let's get started by explaining the Fire King combo. The most important part of the deck are the Fire King cards, and it all starts with this spicy hot wing right here. Legendary Fire King Ponix. In this deck, you ideally want to special summon Ponix in some kind of way, because you want to save your normal summon for something else, which we'll get onto later. But for simplicity's sake, let's just go through the Fire King combo line by just using one Ponix in hand. So you start by summoning Ponix, use its effect to add a Fire King spell trap from your deck to hand, which will be Fire King Sanctuary. Activate Fire King Sanctuary, which on activation activates the field spell directly from your deck. Now we activate the field spell to destroy the Ponix we have on field and search for the new Garunix in our deck. Then immediately on a new chain, because of the way Garunix is worded, we can actually special summon it from the hand using its own effect because Ponix was just destroyed. We then use Garunix's on-summon effect to destroy a fire monster from the deck. And assuming we're going first, we want to destroy Barong so that it can trigger in the grave on the opponent's standby phase along with the Ponix. So this is where we can pass turn to our opponent, and on the standby phase, Ponix adds itself back into the hand, and we also activate Barong to search for a Fire King card from our deck, which will be the new Kirin, because Kirin can summon itself at quick effect speed during the main phase by destroying another fire monster. So when the opponent enters main phase 1, we want to use Kirin to destroy the Ponix in hand and special summon itself. So now we have 2 level 8s on the field, and because Fire King Sanctuary has the effect to XYZ summon a fire monster using Fire King monsters you control, whenever your opponent special summons a monster, we can wait for our opponent to special summon a monster and then use both our level 8s on the field to summon the new Garunix Eternity XYZ. And on summon, this card will destroy all other monsters to interrupt our opponent's plays. Also, it does have the additional effect that when it's destroyed while it has material, it can summon Fire Kings from the grave up to the number of materials it had. So if your opponent is foolish enough to try and destroy Garunix Eternity, then you can just special summon 2 Fire King monsters from the grave, one of which will be Sacred Fire King Garunix, so you can use its on-summon effect on your opponent's turn and destroy something else from the deck. Now the card you want to destroy if you're using the effect on your opponent's turn will either be another Kirin to special summon a Fire King and destroy a card on the field for more interruption, or it can be Fire King Avatar Arvata to special summon a Fire King from the grave. If you do choose to use Arvata, then the card summon does get destroyed during the end phase, so you can choose to summon Barong to get a search when your turn starts, or you can choose to summon Kirin for an extra body, as well as triggering Kirin's effect during the end phase instead. So as you can see, there is a lot of potential for interruption just from summoning one Ponix, and there are multiple ways in the deck to summon it. So for anyone who's maybe struggling to understand, let's just summarize the Fire King combo real quick. Ponix searches Sanctuary, Sanctuary activates Island, Island destroys to search for Garunix, Garunix summons itself because a fire monster was just destroyed, and on summon destroys Barong straight from the deck, and then on the opponent's turn, Barong searches for Kirin so that you have 2 level 8s ready to summon, and when your opponent special summons a monster, you can use Fire King Sanctuary's effect to special summon Garunix Eternity and wipe the board, all on your opponent's turn. So it's really quite simple when you lay it out in this linear sequence. If you can understand this, that's basically the skill floor for the Vikings deck, and you can get pretty far with it at locals. But remember, this is just with one card, and with more cards in hand, you can potentially do much more by getting more Vikings on the field and doing link plays. Doing so does improve your interruption potential, because remember, if Garunix is in the grave at the time you pop something, you can also special summon it. So if Garunix is in the grave during your opponent's turn and you have Kirin in hand, then Garunix can summon itself during your opponent's turn, which can potentially add more layers of interruption your opponent has to deal with. Next up, let's quickly talk about the Sinful Spoils package. Wanted, Seeker of Sinful Spoils is a quick play spell that adds Diabellstar from your deck or grave to your hand, and you can banish it from the grave to place a Sinful Spoils spell or trap to the bottom of the deck, and then draw one card, both of which you can do on the same turn. So it's basically a +1 in hand advantage. Diabellstar the Black Witch sets a Sinful Spoils spell or trap from the deck when she's summoned, and she can summon herself by sending one card from the hand or field to the grave. The spell that we want to set will be original Sinful Spoils Snake Eye. You send one other face-up card you control to the graveyard as cost, then you can special summon one level 1 fire monster from your deck. This being, of course, our friendly chicken wing, Ponix. So basically, if we draw any of these 3 cards, we can get to Ponix and start the combo. All we need to do is sacrifice one other card. And if you start with Wanted, then you get a free draw to make up that advantage back, which is obviously a very nice bonus. So let's add those 3 cards to the combo line, and as you can see, this long chain of cards that search each other that makes up our combo, we can really start anywhere along this line in order to get our deck rolling. So as long as you understand what each of these cards do, you can easily improvise combos for any starting hand. Now that you understand the Fire King side of things, let's head on over to the dark side and cover the Sacred Beast and Unchained line and see where it fits into the combo. So in order to start this combo, you need to have any 2 fiends on the field, and the easiest way to do this is with either Dark Beckoning Beast or Opening of the Spirit Gates. If you have one of these in your starting hand, you can get 2 fiends on the field, because Dark Beckoning Beast gives you an extra normal summon for fiends with 0/0, and both of the cards search each other. So just normal summon Dark Beckoning Beast, add Opening, activate Opening and add Chaos Summoning Beast, summon it using your second normal summon from Dark Beckoning Beast, then link both of them off to summon Unchained Soul, Lord of Yama, and then use Yama's on-summon effect to search for the Red Dog, aka Unchained Soul of Shivara. Next, we want to activate Opening the Spirit Gates to discard one card and special summon a fiend with 0/0 from the grave. If you discarded the Red Dog using this, then we can set a Unchained trap from the deck for free, which is what I do most of the time. However, sometimes you'll need to keep the Red Dog in hand, and you'll see why later. So now that we've summoned an extra body, we can link off Yama and that card that we just summoned into a Link 3 monster, just so that we can get Yama into the graveyard. And the goal here is to trigger Yama's graveyard effect, and in order to do that, we need to destroy something we control. There are multiple ways to do this in the deck. The easiest way, obviously, is just simply by doing the Fire King combo, and triggering Yama whenever you destroy something using Fire King Islands effects. So this would be the point where you start your Fire King combo, if you have some way to special summon Ponix or activate Fire King Island. But if you are unlucky enough to not draw any of the 12 plus Fire King starters in the deck,
look at all those chickens!
Then you will have to improvise and either use the Red Dog or the Blue Dog to pop a Fiend monster or a set card. Maybe even use Kirin to pop the Red Dog, since the Red Dog is a fire monster, to trigger Yama. Anyway, now that you've found some way to trigger Yama's effect by destroying a card you control, you banish Yama from the grave and special summon a Fiend monster from the grave. And if you already set the trap with the Red Dog earlier, you can also pop that trap to special summon the Blue Dog straight from the deck. At this point, using the extra Fiend that you just summoned using Yama's effect, you now want to go into a Link 4 using that monster and the Link 3, which would usually be Appaloosa if you're going first to set up some interruptions, but if you're going second, you can go into Unchained Abomination to help break the opponent's board. Maybe even using one of your opponent's cards as material, since we are using Unchained Soul of Anguish to link up. So, after you've summoned the Link 4, if you have an extra body on the field, maybe from the Fire King combo you also did, you can link into Unchained Soul of Rage using the blue dog you summoned from the trap. So that on your opponent's turn, you can link off an opponent's monster into SB Little Knight, and banish another card on summon, which is very solid interruption. If you do go full combo with the Fire King cards too, you can end on a total of an Appaloosa with 2 materials, a Kirin ready in hand in combination with Garunix Engrave, so that you can use Fire King Sanctuary on the field, and a Soul of Rage. That's a potential of 7 interrupts your opponent has to deal with, as well as plenty of follow-up for the next turn too, since the Fire Kings just have so much innate recursion. What's more, you only need 2 cards with 1 more in hand to discard in order to go full combo. So the other 2 cards in your starting hand could be cards like Called by the Grave to protect your combo from hand traps, or even other spells and traps like Imperm or Fire King Skyburn. Maybe even an Ash Blossom as well, just for extra interruption. So now that we understand both the Fire King combo line and the Unchained line, let's see them combined in the ideal uninterrupted 2.5 card full combo. So, like I said in the deck profile on the ZephyrWargames channel, I only run 2 Yubels, and in this deck you do have to hard draw it in order to use it. There simply wasn't enough space to add extra ways to search Yubel without making the deck too clunky and less competitive. So this is just a case of, if you see it, you see it. However, if you are interested in a pre-Phantom Nightmare Yubel deck that does consistently use Yubel, check out my Fusion Destiny Yubel deck profile, although it is a lot less competitive than this deck. But as for how to summon Yubel in this particular deck, you do first have to draw Yubel, then you can use Fire King Island to destroy Yubel in the hand. This actually triggers Yubel in the grave to summon Terra Incarnate, because the destruction and the search are simultaneous. And with Terra Incarnate on the field, you now have a fiend monster that can't be destroyed by battle and destroys all other monsters during your end phase to either wipe your opponent's board or trigger your own effects, and it can also float into Ultimate Nightmare if your opponent tries to out it. But do bear in mind that if you do search Garunix by destroying Yubel, you can't actually summon Garunix right away, since Yubel is a dark monster and not a fire. So you have to destroy a fire monster in your hand some other way to trigger the Garunix that you just searched. So sometimes you might want to search for a different card other than Garunix if you destroy Yubel. The second way to summon Yubel is by using the effect of Opening of the Spirit Gates. However, if you do it this way, you do have to find some kind of way to destroy Yubel on the field to get out Terra Incarnate, otherwise Yubel will just keep on tributing monsters and wasting your resources. But there are lots of ways to do so in the deck, such as Garunix Eternity's on-summon board wipe, or most of the Unchained cards can destroy fiend monsters. Even Kirin's second effect can destroy any card on the field when Kirin is destroyed. So, for example, if you have the blue dog in the grave and Yubel on the field, you can destroy Yubel to summon the blue dog from the grave, then summon Terra Incarnate, and in case you're wondering, Yubel doesn't miss the timing here either, because Blue Dog Summon and Destruction are simultaneous. I have done my research. So from here, you can also use Blue Dog's on-field effect to destroy Terra Incarnate and summon Ultimate Nightmare. However, you have to choose not to destroy a spell and trap card afterwards, because if you do, then Terra Incarnate will miss the timing and you won't get the Ultimate Nightmare. So in this example, you can actually turbo out Ultimate Nightmare to maybe assist you with an OTK if you need to, which is usually a good option if your opponent has a monster with a pretty high attack. However, most of the time in these games, you probably find yourself summoning Yubel using Spirit Gates just to nuke your opponent's board during like a long grind game or something, which I've actually ended up doing a few times and actually ended up winning because of it. So before we try out a few test hands, I do have a couple of tips for more niche situations. Since Yu-Gi-Oh is a game with 2 players and your opponent might have hand traps to interrupt your combo, or you might be going second into a board with lots of negates, here are some tips so that you can adapt to these situations. In the case of when Dark Beckoning Beast gets impermed, for example, if you do have one of the Unchained dogs in hand, you can still go into Yama and continue your combo. All you gotta do is just set a spell or trap and pop it using one of the effects, so that now you have a negated Dark Beckoning Beast and a Unchained dog on the field, which is 2 fiends, so you can go into Yama and just continue your combo from there. Tip number 2. When your opponent tries to use Ash Blossom to stop the Fire King combo in some way, there are some situations where if you have other Fire King cards in hand, you can still sometimes continue your combo. And this has actually happened to me quite a few times at locals, where I've summoned Ponix, it gets Ash Blossomed, but sometimes I just have another Fire King Island in hand, or a Fire King Sanctuary in hand, and I just activate it anyway and continue the combo. Or I have Kirin and Garunix in hand, so I use Kirin to destroy something and then special summon Garunix Raw with no field spell, which is still pretty good because you can destroy something from the deck and kind of get the deck rolling. Tip number 3. You will come across some situations where you have to trigger your Fire King special summon effects by destroying fire monsters. For example, you've already used your normal summon on Sacred Beast cards, but instead of drawing any of the Sinful Spoil cards that you need to special summon Ponix, you might just have drawn Ponix with no way to special summon it. Well, in this case, you're going to have to use Ponix's own effect and improvise a way to destroy another fire monster. You can do this with cards like Kirin to destroy a fire monster in the hand or on the field. Usually you can destroy something like the red dog that you just searched off the Yama, since the red dog is a fire monster. But don't forget that Ash Blossom is also a fire monster, so if you really need to, you can use Ash Blossom as Destruction Fodder too. Sometimes you might even have to discard Ponix using Opening the Spirit Gates, then special summon it using Circle of the Fire Kings if you hard draw it. And I've actually had to do this in one game. I used Dark Beckoning Beast to link off into Amaraj so that I have a fire monster on the field, and then I used Circle of the Fire Kings to destroy Amaraj and summon the Ponix, which I just discarded using Opening the Spirit Gates. So it definitely does come up sometimes, and you need to be ready to adapt. And for my final tip, I do want to cover the summoning restrictions that this deck has. There aren't that many, but the ones that are there are with Fire King Sanctuary. So with that, you can only summon Fire XYZ monsters using Fire King Sanctuary's effect. This means that you can't use it to summon Dingirsu during your opponent's turn. The only target that I've put in this extra deck is the Garunix Eternity, which is all you need in my opinion. Other restrictions in the deck is if you use the Unchained Link monsters to link away your opponent's cards, you can only link up into a Dark Link monster. This does mean that you can go into IP and SP, as well as all of the other Unchained Link monsters, but you can't, for example, go into Underworld Goddess, because she's actually a light monster. The only actual hard lock that you need to consider is that if you special summon Shavara, the red dog, from your hand using its own effect, then it does lock you into special summoning fiend monsters while it's face up on the field. So if you ever do special summon Shavara from the hand using its own effect, you're going to have to link it off into an Unchained card before you can continue to do any of the other combos. Other than that, I'm going to leave it there for the tips because there are way too many possibilities to cover, and I think the best tip I can give you for this deck is to be ready to improvise when things get interrupted, and plan your combos ahead before you do them to avoid misplays. When you get to the level where you can figure out on the fly what to do with any starting hand, that's when you can start to see the skill ceiling for this deck. But it's also what makes this deck super fun because every game is different, and when you get out of a tough situation due to careful planning and thinking, you always feel like you've skillfully earned it. So then, now that you know everything there is to know about this deck, let's put that knowledge into practice with some test hands. Feel free to pause or slow down the video if you struggle to follow along, and enjoy the test hands. So yeah, that's my complete comprehensive combo guide for Fire King Yubel. When Phantom Nightmare gets released in the TCG, I'll be sure to make a video just like this, but for the new Yubel cards. So do make sure that you're subscribed with your notifications turned on so you don't miss out on that upload. And remember, the deck profile for this deck is on the ZephyrWargames channel, and if you want to see me in action with some IRL duels using this deck, those are also on the ZephyrWargames channel, all of which are linked in the description down below. I am going to be playing this deck at locals exclusively until the new Yubel support comes out in February, because this deck is fun and I love Yubel. And I seriously can't wait for Phantom Nightmare. We are just so close. And I'm so excited. Anyway, if you have any questions, do let me know in the comments down below and I will be replying to all of them. While you're down there, why not leave a like if you found this video useful? And with that, thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next video.